Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a second and a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, review and approval of minutes. I just want to say, please relook the spellings of names in there. There are a couple of names, your name for one, Jack, and also it's Brian Murray, not Brian Murphy. All right, there may be a couple of others. Any other comments, corrections to the minutes?
No.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the May, October, and December of 2025 minutes?
So moved.
I have a
Second.
So I have a-
Second with the changes.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. New business. Application from Brad and Kimberly Goldstein for a variance from Accomack Plantation Planned Unit Development, Section 9.17, and Town Code, Chapter 32, Article 7, Section 32-186, Development Criteria for Resource Protection Areas, to allow for a patio to encroach into the Resource Protection Area, RPA.
All right. So this is going to be a little bit more educational heavy. So if you have any questions, just jump in and cut me off and then ask your questions. So in 2025, the Department of Planning and Zoning received a notice of a possible zoning violation at 165 Sunset Boulevard. The alleged violation involved the unauthorized construction of a patio within the 50-foot landward portion of the resource protection area. I went out there and conducted a site inspection when we got this violation, and I verified that the violation had occurred. And following the violation's confirmation, a notice of violation was issued on January 28, 2026 to the property owner. The notice explained the nature of the infraction and listed the required corrective actions, specifically the complete removal of the patio encroaching into the RPA to be completed within 30 days of receipt, along with a $1,000 fine. Following the receipt of this notice of violation, the property owner, Kimberly Goldstein, contacted the Department of Planning and Zoning to schedule a meeting with the staff to discuss the violation and explore potential solutions that would not require the complete removal of the patio. After consulting with the staff, it was decided that instead of filing a formal appeal of a zoning administrator's decision, Ms. Goldstein would be better off submitting a variance application specifically requesting an exception from Accomack Plantation Planned Unit Development Section 9.17 and Town Code Chapter 32, Article 7, Section 32-186, Development Criteria for Resource Protection Areas, and Section 32-189C. So now that you have a little bit of the narrative, I'm going to give you some of the history of the property. So on July 27, 2022, developer Patrick Hand began the necessary approval processes with the Departments of Planning and Zoning and Building for constructing a single home on Lot 84 of the colony, later addressed as 165 Sunset Boulevard. After receiving said approvals from both the zoning administrator and building official, Patrick Hand started construction on his home. During construction,
Jack, what was the date in that?
July 27, 2022.
22.
Yep. During construction, Patrick Hand transferred the property to Brad and Kimberly Goldstein on January 8th, 2024. And then notably, this dwelling was built to the maximum extent of the 50-foot landward RPA buffer, leaving no room for future improvements or expansion into the rear yard. And then I attached that site plan below. I know it's pretty small. And I also gave you an aerial map on the next page of just the property in general. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a background of the Chesapeake Bay Act. A key part of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act is the requirement for a 100-foot vegetative buffer measured from the water's edge, wetlands, or stream. This buffer is called the Resource Protection Area within the RPA. The 100-foot buffer is divided into a seaward 50 feet, which is closest to the water, and the landward 50 feet closest to the structure. Through an exception process, some development can occur in the landward 50 feet of the RPA, but never in the seaward 50 feet. And there is a little graphic there to break those two up into the front 50 and back 50. And then it is important to understand the history and requirements of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act as they relate to Cape Charles and the state's land use development rules. The goal of the act is to protect and improve water quality of the Chesapeake Bay, its tributaries, and other state waters by reducing the impact of human activities and enforcing the act, which defines and safeguards certain lands called Chesapeake Bay Preservation Areas. Improper use of development of these areas can significantly degrade water quality in the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries. The Code of Virginia requires each locality to adopt a subdivision ordinance, which the town of Cape Charles completed on January 11, 1977. However, adopting a zoning ordinance is a permissive legislative action rather than a statutory obligation. If a locality chooses to adopt a zoning ordinance, the Code of Virginia outlines the necessary components and standards that must be followed. However, the town of Cape Charles did not consider adopting a zoning ordinance until after the state enacted the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act in 1989, which was codified in the Code of Virginia sections 10.1-2100 and 10.1-2115. Under this law, each locality within the CBPA watershed was given a timeline to progressively adopt compliance measures, including the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act Area Overlay District and MAP, with specific ordinance requirements for establishing the RPA, RMA, and intensely developed areas, also known as IDAs, of the CBPA. On September 11, 1990, the town of Cape Charles adopted the first required component, an overlay district with a map and a necessary zoning ordinance components describing the CBPA. The town then adopted an erosion and sediment control ordinance on June 11, 1991, and finally a zoning ordinance on July 14, 1992. In the early 1990s, the town annexed land from the county, which led to the development and adoption of the Planned Unit Development, also known as the PUD Ordinance, and also known as the Accomack Plantation Planned Unit Development Ordinance on February 9, 1993. The development of the PUD happened at the same time as the town adopted the CBPA, the ENS Ordinance, and the Town Zoning Ordinance. As a result, the PUD initially did not fully meet or align with state requirements of the CBPA and the related provisions of the Town Zoning Ordinance. To fix these issues, the town and Bay Creek engaged in a multi-year process with Virginia Oversight Agency for the CBPA, the Chesapeake Bay Local Assistance Department. Through this cooperative effort, the town made necessary updates to the comprehensive plan and received the first of several recognitions of its progress in meeting CBPA requirements on February 26, 1999. And then we lay out the ordinance requirements for you for the CBPA overlay district, section 32.32-186, development criteria for resource protection areas. And bullet A, development in RPAs may only be allowed if it's water dependent, constitutes redevelopment or development within the IDAs, or constitutes redevelopment. Then I'm going to jump us down to Town Code Chapter 32, Article 7, 32-189, which is performance standards. And then we're also going to be jumping down to page 7, which is the buffer area requirements. To minimize the adverse effects of human activities on other components of resource protection areas, state waters, and aquatic life, a 100-foot buffer area of vegetation that is effective in retarding runoff, preventing erosion, and filtering non-point source pollution from runoff shall be retained if present and established where it does not exist. And C.2, when the application of the buffer areas would result in a loss of buildable area on a lot or parcel recorded before October 1st, 1989, the zoning administrator may allow encroachments into the buffer area in accordance with section 7.12 Plan of Development Process and the following criteria. Encroachments into the buffer area shall be the minimum necessary to achieve a reasonable buildable area for a principal structure and necessary utilities. Where practicable, a vegetated area that will maximize water quality protection, mitigate the effects of the buffer encroachment, and is equal to the area of encroachment into the buffer area shall be established elsewhere on the lot end. The encroachment may not extend into the 50 feet buffer of the seaward area. And then we also give you the ordinance requirements to be considered with evaluating an exception application under the CBPA, and that is on page 19 with the big green box around it. And then we have 3 discussion points does the board feel that allowing the exception for 165 Sunset Boulevard as requested is reasonable? If yes, why? If not, why? Has the applicant demonstrated that the buffer plantings will provide an equivalent or greater level of water quality protection compared to what would have existed had the buffer area remained undisturbed? And are there other mitigation efforts that can be included on this property to increase the impact of runoff reduction impact on the land and into the bay? And then our recommendation, we acknowledge that there was an unauthorized construction of the patio within the 50-foot landward buffer, and this does constitute a violation of the applicable zoning and environmental standards. However, we talked to the owners who were in attendance and took all the facts into consideration. We did come up with a couple of factors that would warrant the ability for them to keep their patio. And the big one is the house was built right up to the line of the 50-foot landward RPA buffer and basically leaving zero room for improvement or expansion into the rear yard. And our position was that the owners may have not known this and may have not known the approval process of getting a patio in the rear yard of this area of the colony, which is where their house is located. And then the RPA is determined on a lot-by-lot basis at the time of development. And this development, the development of various homes on the bay-facing side of Sunset Boulevard has spanned 20 years. Therefore, the actual RPA buffer of the 100 feet varies by lot. Some lots having a larger yard that is outside the RPA buffer, where additional house amenities such as a patio can be placed. This particular lot was one of the more recently constructed homes, and the RPA measurements and its placement on the lot reflects the coastal erosion that has occurred in the North Beach area of Bay Creek. And the application of the RPA extends further into the lot. Furthermore, we note that Ms. Goldstein has demonstrated a good faith willingness to cooperate with the Department of Planning and Zoning since receiving a notice of violation, and rather than pursuing a formal appeal, she has proactively engaged with staff to explore different remedies. She has also expressed a genuine commitment to achieve compliance in the manner that it upholds the intent and purpose of the CBPA Act. And then she also gave her minor water quality impact assessment, and that identified 400 plantings that they have currently done. And you can see the list of all the different plantings in this section. But we are also going to recommend that if there is approval of the patio and they can keep it, we will ask that you guys in your motion require that they install an additional 100 native plantings of their choosing to fully offset the lot's total impervious coverage. And then we have our motion and some attachments. And the applicants are here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, would the applicant like to address the Board of Zoning Appeals?
Just first of all, I'd like to thank Katie and Jack for their assistance in helping me understand.
Can you please? Okay, we're being, this is being.
Okay,
Facebook
great.
Live.
Oh, I'm
State
Kim
your
Goldstein.
Name and your address, please.
Okay, my name is Kim Goldstein. I live at 165 Sunset Boulevard here in Cape Charles. I was the one who put the patio in as a gift for my husband. I did not understand the rules around the patio, so I want to apologize for that. I also want to thank.
She needs to speak louder, we're not catching anything.
I want to apologize for putting in the patio. I put it in as a gift for my husband. I want to thank Katie and Jack for their assistance in helping me understand the rules and regulations and to work with me to try and find a plan that satisfies the need. Brad and I do believe in conservation of property. It's a core tenet of how we've raised our children and ourselves, and we believe in trying to protect the erosion of the bay. That's certainly of utmost important to us. So we appreciate your consideration, and if you have any questions about how we got here or what we did or how we intend to remedy it, we're happy to answer anything that you might have.
So the first question is, when you put the patio in, you did not understand what the 100-foot buffer was?
No,
or
I'm
the
from
50-foot?
Chicago. I grew up in Montana. I'm from Chicago. I wasn't familiar with the bay or the rules. I did it even without authorization of my husband. I did it as a gift, and I regret that.
And then when you, before you put the patio in, the the entire buffer all the way down to the shoreline was void of vegetation?
So there's house plantings that the builder put in, you know, right beside it. And then when I started doing research about erosion on the bay, and after some storms, I was walking on the beach and saw what was happening. I contacted the Virginia Tech and planter, and they were telling me about the seagrass, and they were telling me about elephant grass and native grasses and how the roots system goes down. So I ordered a bunch of the plants and I put them on our beachfront because our dune looked dead. During the next storm, we didn't really erode as much as everybody else. So I do believe that we can be an example of good behavior, putting in the appropriate plants and trying to help with what we can to protect the shoreline that we enjoy.
So was that part of the 400
It
plantings?
was,
Okay.
yeah.
Anybody else? Questions?
When
I- Go ahead.
when the house was established up to the edge of the buffer zone, that was legal, that was approved, that was known by zoning in the city, and
It was approved by zoning, yes.
is that the standard practice over there to put
You
it?
are allowed to build right to all the limitations of your lot, including the buffer of the RPA, yes.
Okay. And that would be apparent on the closing documents, on the site plan?
I am not aware of what was provided in the closing documents to the Goldsteins. All I can say, when the house was approved for construction and a building permit was issued, that was part of the site plan that was provided to the builder.
That's just pretty normal.
Yes, and again, I have no idea what was provided in the closing to the new owners.
Did you get a copy of the site plan when you bought the house?
We did get a copy of the site plan when we bought the house. We bought the house mid-construction, so the house was on spec. And we bought the house a few months before it completed. But I'm sure that there was a site plan in the closing documents.
And these are impermeable or permeable pavers, correct?
There's some debate there, to be really honest. I mean, there's cracks in between them, and like if you dump a bucket of water on, it seeps through the patio. But it is a patio that was unauthorized, and I put it in.
And there's no plans on like using any kind of chemicals like Roundup or anything like that to kill grass or whatever in between the pavers? That would
No, I just
potentially wild.
actually went and, you know, dug like the shovel. I do everything by hand and with a shovel.
Okay.
for
And there's no
weeding.
plans on making like a pergola or anything like that over it?
No, I've learned my lesson.
Okay.
I'm just going to plant plants.
Katie, are you required to apply for a building permit before you put in pavers?
No, not a building permit. Zoning clearance, yes.
Okay. So if they would have come to zoning, you would have flagged that this wouldn't have been permitted?
That's correct, and I would have encouraged them to apply for an exception under the Chesapeake Bay Act to you, to see if you would allow such a construction to occur.
Which would be a different application than we're looking at right now. 'Cause
That's
this is
exactly the same application.
The variance.
It's a variance. And so,
Exception is equal to a variance in the Chesapeake Bay parlance.
okay, so the hardship, I mean, a hardship is the big key to getting a variance, correct?
No. That's why we provided you the entire law of exceptions. And so you have certain criteria you need to be reviewing to determine if you should be granting this exception, which is in item C, numbers 1 through 5.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
just asked a question.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, in those exceptions, it says, granting the exception will not confer upon the applicant any special privileges which are denied by this article to other property owners in this overlay district. So the other property owners are denied the ability to build in the RPA.
They're not denied, they have the ability to petition you to seek exceptions to the RPA.
Okay, and number two, the exception is not based on conditions or circumstances or self-created or self-imposed. These are self-created, this is a self-created patio, right?
You're correct, she did construct the patio. Again, we do believe it was not out of any malice or intent to circumvent the law. She was truly unfamiliar and had just not been educated of what living in a coastal community and the requirements that govern it.
And then five, you're imposing, the recommendation is reasonable appropriate conditions are imposed which will prevent exceptions from causing a degradation of the water supply. You've made the planning recommendations.
Yes.
So are you agreeable to the additional 100 plantings that the zoning administrator?
Absolutely. We'll do whatever you recommend or whatever is best practices to protect the shoreline.
Other questions of the applicant?
I don't have any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions to the zoning administrator?
No.
When you say the RPA is determined by lot basis, does this change with time and erosion?
Yes. Because it's based upon, your starting point to measure it is from the average mean high water mark, and then you move 100 feet from there onto the property. So that is moving all the time as you have coastal storms and as it changes the beachfront.
So, when a builder purchases a lot, the RPA may be 25 feet out, and when he's building 2 years later, you got lost 20 feet of shoreline and the RPA changes?
Sorry, I have to stand for this one, get the microphone.
Sorry.
So it actually is not relevant when somebody purchases a lot, it's when they come to build on a lot. And so when they come in to build, they submit a site plan, and the provision under the state code is a site plan is valid for 5 years from date of approval. So they can either build immediately, or they can wait the entire 5 years, but once the site plan is approved, that shows the RPA and the maximum buildable features that is going to be constructed on the property, then they have 5 years, regardless of what other coastal conditions may occur on or near the premises. Yes,
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question now.
sure.
So what happens over time when the RPA line might be moving with coastal erosion?
It's
Do they-
affixed in time to that lot upon the approval of that building permit and site plan.
Okay, so that never changes, so they
That
wouldn't
never
have to
changes.
rip down, if we approve this, they wouldn't have to rip it down later as the,
No.
okay. Interesting.
All right. Further discussion?
I think that this is kind of, I feel sorry for the situation. It's such a small amount of pavers. When you look at the picture,
It's 150 square feet.
yeah, and I think it's an admirable, decision to want to protect one of your most valuable assets by adding native plants that will protect your property from shoreline erosion, and I hope the applicant will, look into the zoning ordinance before future projects, but if the zoning administrator plans to enforce the plantings with the completion of this minor quality water assessment, ultimately, I think it's a benefit for our community to have more shoreline protection.
I agree with that.
All right. Do I have somebody that wants to put a motion on the table? Do you want some help in putting a motion on the table?
I can put a motion on the table.
Okay?
I would like to put a motion on the table that approves their ability to keep the patio, however, with the condition that they do at least 100 additional plantings and no chemical treatments of any kind.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Discussion?
Can I
No.
take that motion?
Sure.
So you're indicating that you would approve the variance as requested that would retain the patio as
Right.
planted. Include the plantings outlined in the minor water quality impact assessment report.
Right.
Plus the additional 100 plantings requested by staff.
Right.
And you've added one more condition of no chemical treatment of the RPA area.
Correct. Thank you.
Second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now, further discussion.
I think Katie clarified my questions about the various parts of the motion. It's basically the recommendation of the staff, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so we have any further discussion? Okay, so I'll ask the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Unanimously approves. Thank you. Other banners, review and amend BZA bylaws and rules of procedure. What page is that on?
Shoot.
89?
Make sure everybody's ready. Got it?
Yep.
Okay, specifically, we added, per request from DEQ, when they came and did our audit of our Chesapeake Bay Preservation Program, they wanted us to ensure that we included a criteria requirement in your bylaws or board member manual that deals specifically with exceptions to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act overlay. That is shown starting on page 95 of this document. But in the process of adding that in, for those who don't know, we codified the town zoning ordinance. It is now part of the town code, so that's where you go find it now. Yay, it's easier to locate, and it's chapter 32 of the town code. We just updated those references, so it no longer has the old zoning ordinance section references, but actually the town code section references. We also updated the start of your regular meetings to now reflect your recent change to start at 9 a.m. And that's it. So with that said, I drive your attention to page 95, which is outlining how we deal with exceptions, or as you're more familiar, variances. But they are called exceptions under the Chesapeake Bay Act. I wish they would use the same terminology throughout the whole town code. They don't. Anyway, so that's all we're trying to do is add that whole section here so that every time we have a hearing, we can just pull basically this one pager for you guys to look at as to why you're trying to do something under what criteria. So with that said, I just need you to hopefully accept the changes to your board member manual.
Everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Do I have any? Okay. All right, we're good to go?
Yep, that's it.
We don't need to take a vote on that, we just approve it.
If you're good to go, you can take a vote, or you can tell me you're good to go, and I'll accept that. Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
get a,
I move that we accept Katie's proposed changes to the Board of Zoning Appeals packet.
okay, so a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries. All right.
And that's it.
Okay, next meeting is May 12th at 9 a.m.
Yes, as of now, we have no applications received, so give me another, I think we got another couple days for the deadline, but I don't see anything percolating through the system, so you'll probably get that one not canceled for you.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Get